Zara sat at her desk in the research center high above the planet Kepler 7. The blue and green world spun slowly beneath the space station. She was young for a Valkyrie scholar, with silver skin that shimmered under the soft lights. Her forearms moved quickly as she typed her report. The report was about humans. These strange creatures had only been discovered 5 years ago when their small ships first reached Valkyrie space. Most species in the galaxy thought humans were weak and new to space travel. Zara agreed with this view. She laughed as she read the files on her screen. Other alien races told wild stories about human soldiers. They said humans never gave up in fights. They claimed humans could win battles even when they were badly outnumbered. Some stories said humans would fight to the death rather than surrender. Complete nonsense, Zara said to herself. She had studied many warrior races across the galaxy. The Thraxians had natural armor and were 3 times stronger than most species. The Kethmar had razor-sharp claws and could see in total darkness. The Bulgari were massive creatures with thick hides that could stop most weapons. Humans had none of these advantages. They were small, soft, and had no natural weapons. Their home planet had normal gravity and a mild climate. Nothing about them suggested they could be dangerous fighters. Zara's supervisor, Elder Thecalon, walked into her office. He was old even by Valkyrie standards, with deep lines carved into his silver face. His 6 eyes looked tired as he sat down across from her desk. "How is your report coming along?" he asked. "Very well, sir. I should finish it today." Zara turned her screen toward him. "The human military claims are clearly false. Look at this battle report from the Centauri system." She pulled up a file that claimed 30 human soldiers had defended a mining station against 3,000 Reaper raiders. The report said the humans held their position for 6 days until help arrived. It claimed they used clever tricks and refused to give up even when most of them were wounded. 30 against 3,000? Elder Thecalon shook his head. The math alone makes it impossible. The Reapers are known for their brutal attacks. They show no mercy. Exactly, Zara said. This story gets more ridiculous each time it's told. I found 12 different versions of this same battle. In some versions, there were only 20 humans. In others, they faced 5,000 Reapers. She opened another file. This one told of human ships ramming enemy vessels during space battles. The reports claimed human captains would crash their own ships into larger enemy warships to protect their allies. Who would waste a perfectly good ship like that? Zara asked. It makes no sense. Ships are expensive and take years to build. Any logical commander would retreat and fight another day. Elder Thecalon nodded. The humans are clearly trying to build a reputation they don't deserve. Many new species do this when they first join galactic society. They want others to fear them. Zara pulled up more files. Each story seemed more unbelievable than the last. Humans fighting with broken bones. Human soldiers sharing their food with prisoners. Human medics treating enemy wounded during active battles. Human civilians taking up weapons to defend their homes. Listen to this one, Zara said, reading from her screen. A human transport ship was attacked by pirates. The crew had no military training, but they fought back anyway. They used tools from their engine room as weapons. The report says they actually won the fight. Civilians defeating trained pirates? Elder Thecalon laughed. With maintenance tools? The person who wrote this report has quite an imagination. Zara saved her work and leaned back in her chair. She felt proud of her analysis. These human war stories were clearly myths created to make a weak species seem dangerous. Her report would help the Valkyrie Council understand the truth about humans. I've read similar claims about other species, she said. The Karathi used to say they were unbeatable in space combat. We discovered they had only won 3 real battles in their entire history. Most of their victories were against unmanned cargo ships. Exactly right, Elder Thecalon said. Reputation often matters more than reality in galactic politics. But facts are facts. The humans have been in space for less than 200 years. Most species take 1,000 years just to master basic warfare. Zara looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were probably spreading more false stories about their military might. She wondered if they actually believed their own lies. I do find one thing interesting about the humans, she said. Their stories are very detailed. Most false military claims are vague. But human battle reports include exact numbers, dates, and locations. Clever liars often add details to make their stories sound real. Elder Thecalon replied, Don't let that fool you. Remember what we know about human biology. They have no natural armor. Their reaction speed is average at best. They can't survive in hostile environments without special suits. Zara nodded and returned to her typing. She wrote that human military claims were propaganda designed to make other species fear them. She recommended that the Velkari Council treat humans as a minor threat at most. As she worked, she thought about the human delegation that was supposed to visit the station next month. It would include scientists, diplomats, and one military officer. Zara looked forward to meeting them. She wanted to see these so-called warriors for herself. Her computer beeped with an incoming message. It was from the station commander. The message said the human delegation would arrive earlier than planned. Their ship would dock tomorrow morning. Zara smiled. Perfect timing. She could finish her report and then observe the humans during their visit. It would be interesting to see how these weak creatures tried to act tough in person. She saved her work and prepared to leave for the day. Tomorrow would bring her first real look at the species behind all those ridiculous war stories. She was certain that meeting them in person would prove everything she had written in her report. The elevator carried her down through the station toward her quarters. Through the transparent walls, she could see other researchers working late into the night. Everyone was curious about the human visit. Most Velkari had never seen a human before. Zara wondered what they would be like. Probably nervous and trying too hard to impress everyone. She had seen it before with other new species. They would talk big but avoid any real challenges. As she reached her floor, Zara felt satisfied with her day's work. Her report would help the Velkari Council make informed decisions about humans. Facts and logic would always triumph over wild stories and impossible claims. She had no idea that tomorrow would change everything she believed about human warriors. Zara woke up early the next morning. She wanted to watch the human ship dock at the station. From her window, she could see a small vessel approaching. It looked plain and unremarkable compared to the elegant Velkari ships or the massive Thraxian warships she had seen before. The human ship was called the Earth's Pride. It was about the size of a standard diplomatic transport. Nothing about it suggested these were dangerous warriors. Zara felt more confident than ever about her report. She dressed quickly and went to the docking bay. A crowd of curious Velkari had gathered to see the humans arrive. Station Commander Veltar stood near the airlock with other important officials. Everyone waited quietly as the ship finished docking procedures. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 3 humans walked out onto the station. Zara studied them carefully. They were smaller than she had expected. The tallest one was barely as tall as an average Velkari. They had soft pink skin and moved without the fluid grace of her people. The first human was a female wearing a dark blue uniform. She had short brown hair and calm eyes. Her name tag read, Captain Amy Foster. Behind her came an older male in similar clothing. His name was Dr. Carl Bennett. The third human was younger and wore different clothes that looked more military. His tag said, Sergeant Pete Williams. Captain Foster stepped forward and spoke in clear Velkari. Greetings. We are honored to visit your station. I am Captain Foster, representing Earth's diplomatic service. Commander Veltar welcomed them warmly. We are pleased to have you here. Your species has been the subject of much curiosity among our people. Zara noticed that the humans stood differently than most species. They held themselves very straight and kept their eyes moving, always watching their surroundings. The young soldier, Pete Williams, positioned himself where he could see both the crowd and the exits. During the formal welcome ceremony, Zara listened to the humans speak. They were polite but confident. Captain Foster answered questions about human society and technology. Dr. Bennett discussed scientific cooperation. Sergeant Williams said very little, but his eyes never stopped moving. After the ceremony, the humans were given a tour of the research station. Zara followed at a distance, pretending to work while actually observing them. She wanted to see if they would boast about their military achievements or try to seem more dangerous than they were. The tour guide, Professor Kethmore, showed them the various research labs. When they reached the military history section, he mentioned some of the warrior cultures they studied. The humans listened politely but made no claims about their own fighting abilities. We have extensive files on combat tactics from across the galaxy, Professor Kethmore said. Perhaps you could share some human military strategies for our research. Zara expected the humans to start telling wild stories about their battles. Instead, Sergeant Williams simply said, We prefer defensive positions when possible. Fighting from cover saves lives, that was it. No boasting, no impossible claims. Just a simple, practical statement. Zara found this puzzling. Every other species they had met loved to talk about their military victories. During lunch, Zara sat at a nearby table where she could hear the humans talking. Dr. Bennett was discussing plant biology with some Velkari scientists. Captain Foster talked about trade agreements with the station's commerce officer. Sergeant Williams ate quietly and continued watching everyone around him. "Tell us about your homeworld's defenses," asked Commander Veltar. "Earth must have strong protection to support space exploration." "We have adequate security measures," Captain Foster replied. "Nothing too advanced compared to older galactic civilizations. We focus more on avoiding conflicts when possible." Again, Zara was surprised. The humans were not trying to seem dangerous or impressive. They spoke about their military like it was nothing special. This was very different from the wild stories she had read in her files. After lunch, there was a minor accident in one of the labs. A chemical spill created toxic fumes that made the area dangerous. The station's emergency teams rushed to handle the situation, but their procedures were slow and careful. Zara watched as the three humans immediately stood up when the alarm sounded. They moved toward the emergency area without being asked. Sergeant Williams quickly assessed the situation and started directing people away from the dangerous zone. "Sir, we need to evacuate this section," he told Commander Veltar. "Those fumes will spread through the air system if we don't act fast." "Our emergency teams are handling it," the commander replied. "With respect, sir, they're moving too slowly. Dr. Bennett, can you help me seal off these air vents?" Dr. Bennett nodded and immediately began helping. Captain Foster organized the evacuation of nearby areas. The three humans worked together smoothly, like they had done this many times before. Within 10 minutes, they had contained the spill and prevented it from spreading. The Velkari emergency teams were still setting up their equipment when the crisis was already over. "How did you know what to do?" Professor Kethmore asked. "Basic emergency training," Sergeant Williams said. "Every human learns this stuff. You identify the threat, contain it, and protect people. Simple." But it hadn't looked simple to Zara. The humans had responded faster than trained Velkari emergency workers. They made decisions quickly and worked together without needing to discuss plans. It was like they could read each other's minds. That evening, there was a dinner party for the human visitors. Many station residents came to meet them and ask questions. Zara sat at a corner table, still observing and taking notes. A young Velkari scientist named Mordan started asking Sergeant Williams about human combat training. "Is it true that human soldiers train every day?" "Most days," Williams replied. "Physical fitness is important. So is practicing with weapons and learning tactics. But surely you don't expect to fight real wars," Mordan asked. "Space travel makes most conflicts unnecessary. Resources are abundant in space." Williams was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "There are always people who want to take things by force. Pirates, raiders, people who hurt others for fun. Someone has to stop them. But your people are new to space. You can't have much experience with real combat." "We've had some encounters," Williams said calmly. "Pirates mostly. A few raider attacks on outer colonies. Nothing we couldn't handle." The way he said it made Zara pay closer attention. Williams spoke like these encounters were normal, everyday events. Like fighting pirates was just part of life for humans. "What was the worst fight you've been in?" Mordan asked. Williams thought for a moment. "Probably the attack on New Denver Colony. 27 of us held off about 300 raiders until the fleet could arrive." Zara nearly dropped her drink. This was exactly like the stories in her files. The same impossible numbers. But Williams said it like he was talking about the weather. 300? Mordan looked shocked. "How could you possibly survive against so many?" "Good defensive positions. The colonists helped. Raiders aren't usually willing to take heavy losses. After we killed about 50 of them, the rest decided it wasn't worth it." Captain Foster looked uncomfortable. "Pete, maybe we shouldn't discuss military operations." "Sorry, ma'am. Just answering questions." But the damage was done. Zara had heard a human soldier calmly describe exactly the kind of impossible battle she had dismissed as fiction. Either Williams was lying very convincingly, or her report was completely wrong. She excused herself early and went back to her quarters. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what she had observed. The humans didn't act like warriors, but they had responded to the emergency with perfect coordination. They didn't boast about their military, but Williams had casually mentioned surviving a battle against overwhelming odds. Everything about the humans confused her assumptions. They were polite and peaceful, but always alert. They seemed weak but had handled the crisis better than trained emergency workers. They claimed to be nothing special, but their actions suggested otherwise. Zara stared out her window at the stars. Tomorrow the humans would give a presentation about their culture and history. Maybe that would help her understand what was real and what was fiction about these strange creatures. She had expected to prove the humans were lying about their military abilities. Instead, she was starting to wonder if the stories in her files might actually be true. The next morning brought terrible news. Zara was eating breakfast when the station's emergency alarms began wailing. Red lights flashed in the hallways as the automated voice announced a code-red threat. She rushed to the nearest information terminal. The screen showed radar readings from the outer sensors. 12 large ships were approaching the station at high speed. The computer identified them as Ravager vessels. Zara's blood went cold. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Ravagers. They were a brutal species that attacked peaceful stations and colonies. They took whatever they wanted and destroyed everything else. No one had ever successfully defended against a major Ravager attack. The station's commander called an emergency meeting in the main conference room. Zara hurried there along with other researchers and staff members. Commander Veltar stood at the front, his face grim. "The Ravager fleet will reach us in 4 hours," he announced. "They have 12 warships. We have only 2 small patrol craft for defense. Our shields can protect us for perhaps 30 minutes under heavy attack." Frightened voices filled the room. Some people suggested trying to negotiate. Others wanted to evacuate immediately. A few thought they should send out a distress signal and hope help would arrive. "The standard procedure is to surrender," Commander Veltar continued. "The Ravagers usually take some prisoners and supplies, but they don't kill everyone if we don't resist. I'm sorry, but we have no other choice." Captain Foster stood up from her seat. "Commander, we would like to help defend the station." Everyone turned to look at the 3 humans. Commander Veltar shook his head. "I appreciate the offer, Captain, but your ship is just a transport vessel. You have no weapons that could hurt Ravager warships." "Our ship has some defensive systems," Sergeant Williams said quietly, "and we have experience dealing with raiders." "These aren't normal raiders," the commander replied. "Ravager ships are massive. Each one carries over 2,000 warriors. They have heavy armor and powerful weapons. 3 humans cannot make a difference against such a force." Dr. Bennett leaned forward. "What if we don't try to fight them ship to ship? What if we make them come to us?" "I don't understand. This station has strong shields and thick walls. The Ravagers will have to dock and board us to take control. That means fighting in narrow corridors where their numbers matter less." Commander Veltar looked puzzled. "You want to fight inside the station?" "That would put all our people at risk." "No, sir," Sergeant Williams said. "You evacuate the civilians to the protected areas. We set up defensive positions at key points. When they board, we make them pay for every meter they advance. The 3 of you against thousands of Ravagers? The 3 of us plus whoever else is willing to fight. Station security, maintenance workers, anyone who can hold a weapon. We teach them basic tactics and give them defensive positions." Zara listened to this conversation with growing amazement. The humans were actually volunteering to fight an impossible battle. They spoke about facing thousands of enemies like it was a reasonable plan. Elder Theclon, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. "This is madness. The humans are either brave fools or they don't understand what they're facing. Either way, we cannot ask our people to die in a hopeless battle." "With respect, sir," Captain Foster said, "surrender doesn't guarantee survival either. Ravagers are known for killing prisoners when they get bored. At least fighting gives us a chance." "What chance? You're talking about a few dozen defenders against thousands of attackers." Williams smiled for the first time since Zara had met him. It was not a happy smile. "Sir, you'd be surprised what a small group can accomplish with good positions and the will to fight." Commander Veltar looked around the room. Many faces showed fear, but some looked thoughtful. Finally, he made his decision. "I cannot order anyone to stay and fight, but I won't stop volunteers either. Anyone who wants to help the humans defend the station may do so. Everyone else will evacuate to the emergency shelters." About 30 Velkari volunteered to stay and fight. Most were young security officers or maintenance workers. A few older researchers also stepped forward, including Professor Kethmore. "I've studied military history my whole life," the professor said. "Perhaps it's time I saw some real combat." The next 3 hours passed quickly. The humans organized the defenders with impressive efficiency. Williams divided the volunteers into small groups and assigned each group to defend a specific area. He showed them how to set up barriers and create crossfire positions. Captain Foster contacted their ship and had additional weapons and supplies brought to the station. Dr. Bennett helped turn everyday items into improvised weapons and traps. Zara found herself helping despite her intention to just observe. She carried supplies to the defensive positions and learned how to operate a simple energy weapon. Williams taught her how to take cover and shoot accurately. The key is to stay calm, he told her. Pick your targets. Make every shot count. Don't try to be a hero. Just do your job and trust the people around you to do theirs. As the Ravager fleet drew closer, Zara watched the humans prepare for battle. They moved with quiet confidence, checking their weapons and encouraging the Velkari defenders. There was no fear in their eyes, only determination. "Are you scared?" she asked Sergeant Williams. "Always," he replied. "Fear keeps you alive, but scared doesn't mean you can't fight." The radar screens showed the Ravager ship slowing down as they reached the station. They formed a circle around the research facility, cutting off any escape routes. The largest ship moved toward the main docking bay. Commander Veltar's voice came over the communication system from the emergency shelter. "Ravager fleet, this is Station Commander Veltar. We surrender unconditionally. Please do not harm our people." A harsh voice answered in broken galactic standard. "Good, we take station now. No resist or we kill all." Williams activated his radio. "All defenders, this is Sergeant Williams. Remember your training. Wait for my signal. Make them pay for every step." The first Ravager ship docked with a loud clang that echoed through the station. Zara was positioned behind a barricade in Corridor 7 with 3 other Velkari. She could hear the outer airlock opening. Heavy footsteps echoed through the halls as the first group of Ravagers entered the station. They were huge creatures, nearly 3 meters tall with thick gray skin and natural armor plates. Each one carried weapons that looked capable of destroying walls. "Here they come," Williams whispered into his radio. The first group of 20 Ravagers marched confidently down the main corridor. They expected no resistance from the surrendered station. That confidence lasted exactly 30 seconds. Williams triggered the first trap when the Ravagers reached the junction of 3 corridors. Explosive charges that Dr. Bennett had made from maintenance supplies detonated above and behind the enemy group. The blast didn't kill them, but it trapped them in a killing zone. "Open fire," Williams commanded. Energy beams lit up the corridor from multiple directions. The Velkari defenders, hidden behind carefully positioned barriers, poured accurate fire into the surprised Ravagers. The narrow space meant the attackers couldn't use their superior numbers. Within minutes, all 20 Ravagers were down. The defenders had not lost a single person. "First blood to us," Williams announced calmly. "Reload and prepare for the next group." "They know we're here now." Zara realized she was shaking, but not from fear. The battle had been exactly like the impossible stories in her files. A small group of defenders had just wiped out a much larger enemy force using tactics and positioning. The difference was that now she had seen it happen with her own eyes. The humans weren't telling stories. They were showing her the truth about human warfare. The real battle was just beginning. The Ravagers learned quickly. The second assault came with 50 warriors instead of 20. They moved more carefully and used portable shields to protect themselves from the defenders' fire. But the humans had expected this. Williams had positioned his people in overlapping defensive positions. When the Ravagers advanced through one corridor, they exposed themselves to fire from the side passages. Dr. Bennett's improvised explosives forced them into specific routes where the defenders could concentrate their weapons. "Fall back to position 2, Williams ordered when the Ravagers got too close to the first barricade. The defenders moved smoothly to their secondary positions. The Ravagers followed, thinking they had won ground. Instead, they walked into another carefully planned trap. This time, Captain Foster triggered the ambush from above using maintenance catwalks. Zara watched in amazement as the battle unfolded exactly as the humans had planned. Every move seemed to have been thought out in advance. When the Ravagers tried to flank the defenders, they found more traps waiting. When they concentrated their forces, hidden snipers picked them off from unexpected angles. But the defenders were taking casualties too. One young Velkari security officer was hit by Ravager fire and couldn't continue fighting. Professor Kethmore took a glancing shot to his arm but refused to leave his position. "How are you holding up?" Williams asked Zara during a brief pause between attacks. "I can't believe this is working," she replied, reloading her weapon. "It's working because everyone is doing their job. But the hard part is coming. They're going to send everything they have in the next assault." Williams was right. The third attack came with over 100 Ravagers supported by heavy weapons and armored suits. They blasted through the outer barricades with focused energy beams and advanced in a coordinated formation. "All positions, this is Williams. They're going to break through our outer line. Stick to the plan. Fall back by sections and make them pay for every meter." The fighting became more intense. Ravagers pushed through the first defensive line, but the cost was enormous. For every meter they advanced, they left dead warriors behind. The narrow corridors worked against them, limiting how many could attack at once. Zara found herself fighting alongside Dr. Bennett when their position was overrun. The elderly human moved with surprising speed and accuracy, his shots finding their targets while he helped wounded defenders retreat to safety. "I thought you were a scientist," she said as they fell back to the next position. "I am," he replied, pausing to shoot a Ravager who had gotten too close. "But every human learns to fight when necessary. It's part of our culture." The battle raged for 2 hours. The defenders slowly gave ground, but they made the Ravagers pay heavily for each advance. Bodies littered the corridors, mostly Ravager warriors who had underestimated their opponents. Captain Foster coordinated the retreat from the command post, directing ammunition to the areas that needed it most. Her calm voice over the radio kept everyone focused on their tasks. "Position 5 needs more power cells," she announced. "Position 3, can you spare any?" "Sending 2 people with supplies," came the reply. Zara began to understand how the humans fought so effectively. They shared resources, covered for each other, and never abandoned their wounded. Every decision was made to help the group survive, not to make individuals look brave. But even with perfect tactics, the numbers were against them. The Ravagers had thousands of warriors and could afford heavy losses. The defenders had less than 30 people left fighting. Williams called a final retreat to the central hub of the station. This was their last defensive position. If the Ravagers broke through here, the battle would be over. "This is it, people," he announced. "No more falling back. We hold this position or we lose everything." The remaining defenders took their places around the circular chamber. The wounded who could still fight stayed at their positions. Those who couldn't helped by passing ammunition and providing cover. Zara crouched behind an overturned table with her energy rifle ready. Her hands had stopped shaking hours ago. She felt strangely calm despite knowing they were probably about to die. "Why aren't you afraid?" she asked Williams, who was checking his weapon nearby. "Who says I'm not afraid?" he replied with a grim smile. "But fear is just information. It tells you that something is dangerous. What you do with that information is what matters." The final assault began with explosions as the Ravagers blasted through the last barriers. Over 200 warriors poured into the central chamber from multiple entrances. Their roars filled the air as they charged the defensive positions. The defenders opened fire from all directions. The circular room became a storm of energy beams and explosions. Ravagers fell by the dozens, but more kept coming. The defenders were completely surrounded. Williams fought like a machine, his rifle never stopping. When it overheated, he switched to a backup weapon without missing a beat. Captain Foster coordinated the defense while fighting her own section. Dr. Bennett treated wounded defenders even as enemy fire came from all directions. But it wasn't enough. There were too many Ravagers and too few defenders. One by one, the defensive positions fell silent. Zara watched her fellow Velkari fall around her. Soon only a handful of fighters remained alive. "This is the end," she thought. "We're all going to die here." Then something impossible happened. The station shook with the impact of new explosions, but these weren't from inside the station. Through the chaos of battle, Zara heard Williams speaking into his radio. "Charlie team, this is Williams. Thanks for the backup. Better late than never." "Sorry we're late, Sarge," came the reply. "Had to deal with the Ravager fleet first." New voices joined the battle as more humans poured into the chamber. They wore full combat armor and carried heavy weapons. The few surviving Ravagers found themselves caught between the original defenders and this new force. The battle ended quickly after that. The surviving Ravagers surrendered when they realized they were outnumbered and outgunned. Captain Lisa Martinez of the human warship New York found Zara sitting against a wall, still holding her rifle. The human captain had short black hair and confident eyes. "You okay there?" Martinez asked, offering her a hand up. I think so. How many humans were on your ship? About 40 Marines. We also brought 2 other ships with us. Total of maybe 120 human soldiers. 120? Zara looked around at the carnage. You defeated 12 Ravager ships with only 3 human vessels? Martinez shrugged. The Ravagers aren't used to fighting people who fight back effectively. Once we took out their command ship, the others lost coordination. Standard human naval tactics, Zara stared at her. Standard tactics. As if defeating a superior enemy force was just normal procedure for humans. Williams limped over to them, wounded but alive. Good timing, Captain. Another few minutes and we would have been in real trouble. Real trouble? Zara couldn't believe what she was hearing. You just fought off thousands of Ravagers with 30 defenders. How is that not real trouble? Williams looked confused. We held them off until help arrived. That was the plan from the beginning. Captain Foster contacted the fleet as soon as we knew the Ravagers were coming. You knew help was coming? Of course. Did you think we would try to fight the entire Ravager fleet by ourselves? That would be stupid. Zara sat down heavily. Everything she thought she knew about the battle was wrong. The humans hadn't been fighting a hopeless last stand. They had been buying time for reinforcements to arrive. The whole defense had been planned around holding out until more humans could join the fight. But you were willing to die here, she said. If necessary, Williams replied. But dying wasn't the goal. Winning was the goal. Sometimes you have to risk death to achieve victory. As medical teams treated the wounded and engineers assessed the damage, Zara walked through the station in a daze. Her mind kept returning to her report about human military capabilities. Every conclusion she had reached was wrong. The humans didn't avoid fights. They planned them carefully. They didn't rely on superior numbers. They used tactics and teamwork. They didn't boast about their victories. They just achieved them efficiently and moved on. Everything she had dismissed as impossible legends had just happened in front of her. The humans had done exactly what their stories claimed they could do. 3 days after the battle, Zara sat in the station's medical bay. Her wounds were healing well, but her mind was still processing everything that had happened. The human ships remained docked at the station, their crews helping with repairs and security. She watched human Marines working alongside Velkari engineers to fix the damaged sections. The same soldiers who had fought so fiercely against the Ravagers now helped carry medical supplies and comfort frightened civilians. They showed no signs of being violent or aggressive warriors. Dr. Bennett found her there, his arm in a medical brace from the wound he had taken during the fighting. He sat down beside her with a tired smile. How are you feeling? He asked. Confused, Zara replied honestly. I've been studying military history for years. I thought I understood warfare. But watching you humans fight changed everything I believed. What did you believe before? Zara thought carefully before answering. I believed that military strength came from superior weapons, armor, or physical abilities. The strongest species won battles through overwhelming force, but you humans aren't stronger than Ravagers. Your weapons aren't better than theirs, yet you won anyway. Dr. Bennett nodded. Physical strength isn't everything. Sometimes the mind matters more than the muscle. But it's more than just being smart. I've seen other intelligent species lose battles. There's something different about how humans approach warfare. What do you think that difference is? Zara looked out the window at the stars. You don't fight to win battles. You fight to win wars. Every decision you made during the attack was about achieving the final goal, not about looking brave in the moment. That's part of it, Dr. Bennett agreed. What else? You work together perfectly. I saw Velkari defenders who had never met you before following Sergeant Williams' orders without question. You made them trust you in just a few hours. Trust is earned through competence and sacrifice. Williams put himself in the most dangerous positions. Captain Foster shared supplies equally with everyone. I treated Velkari wounded before treating my own injuries. Actions speak louder than words. Zara turned to look at him. That's another thing. You helped our people even when it put you at greater risk. Why would you do that? Dr. Bennett was quiet for a moment. Because they were fighting beside us. When someone stands with you against a common enemy, they become your comrade. You protect your comrades. Even alien comrades you just met. Courage is courage. Sacrifice is sacrifice. Species doesn't matter when someone is willing to die to protect others. Captain Foster appeared in the doorway. Mind if I join you? They made room for her on the bench. Foster looked tired but satisfied. The station repairs are going well. We should have everything back to normal within a week. Captain, Zara said, can I ask you about something that happened during the battle? Of course. When the final assault began, you knew we were probably going to die. But you stayed calm and kept giving orders. How? Foster smiled. Panic doesn't help anyone. If I had shown fear, it would have spread to everyone else. A leader's job is to give people hope and direction, especially when things look hopeless. But weren't you scared? Terrified, Foster admitted. But scared doesn't mean defeated. Some of humanity's greatest victories came when we were most afraid. Sergeant Williams joined them, walking slowly due to his injuries. Ladies, how are you holding up? We were just discussing human military philosophy, Dr. Bennett said. Zara is trying to understand how we fight. Williams sat down carefully. It's not complicated. You identify the mission. You plan the best way to achieve it. You execute the plan and adapt when things go wrong. You never give up until the mission is complete or impossible. But what if the mission is impossible from the start? Zara asked. Then you redefine what's possible, Williams replied. Impossible just means no one has figured out how to do it yet. Over the next few days, Zara spent time with the human crews. She listened to their stories and observed how they interacted with each other and with the Velkari. Everything she learned reinforced the same conclusions. Humans didn't fight because they were naturally violent. They fought to protect things they valued. They weren't fearless warriors who felt no pain. They were people who acted despite their fear and pain. They weren't superior to other species physically. They were superior in their refusal to accept defeat. The most important thing she learned was that human military culture wasn't separate from their civilian culture. The same values that made them good soldiers also made them good scientists, diplomats, and friends. Loyalty, sacrifice, determination, and teamwork were just part of how humans lived. A week after the battle, Zara returned to her office to finish her report. The old version, full of dismissive comments about human military claims, was completely wrong. She deleted every word and started over. The human military represents a unique approach to warfare in known space, she wrote. Their effectiveness comes not from superior technology or physical abilities, but from cultural factors that permeate their entire society. She described the battle in detail, explaining how 30 humans and volunteers had held off thousands of ravagers. She analyzed their tactics, their leadership, and their willingness to sacrifice for others. Human military doctrine is based on the principle that any objective can be achieved if approached with sufficient planning, determination, and sacrifice. They do not accept defeat as long as any possibility of victory remains. Elder Theclon read her new report with growing amazement. These claims seem as impossible as the stories you originally dismissed. The difference is that I was there this time, Zara replied. I saw it happen. I participated in it. Every word is true. If this is accurate, it changes everything we know about human capabilities. It should change everything we know about warfare itself. Humans don't fight like any other species we've studied. Their methods could be adopted by other civilizations. Elder Theclon was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, "What do you recommend we tell the Council?" The truth. Human military capabilities have been underestimated by everyone in the galaxy. They're not the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced, but they might be the most dangerous opponents any species could face. Dangerous in what way? They never stop fighting. Other species fight until the cost becomes too high. Then they surrender or retreat. Humans fight until they win or until they're all dead. That makes them unpredictable and extremely difficult to defeat. Months later, Zara's report was distributed throughout Velkari space and shared with other galactic civilizations. It became required reading for military academies and diplomatic schools. The section about human tactical flexibility was studied by species across the galaxy. But for Zara, the most important part was the conclusion she had added on the final day. Human warriors are not myths or legends. They are real, and they are exactly as capable as their stories suggest. Perhaps more importantly, they are not monsters who love war. They are people who understand that sometimes fighting is necessary to protect what matters most. They fight not because they hate their enemies, but because they love their friends. The human ships eventually left to continue their diplomatic mission. Captain Foster, Dr. Bennett, and Sergeant Williams said goodbye to the friends they had made on the station. Williams gave Zara a small pin from his uniform. "What's this for?" she asked. For standing with us when it mattered, he replied. You earned it. As she watched their ships disappear into hyperspace, Zara thought about all the other researchers and diplomats who had dismissed human military claims as fiction. They would learn the truth eventually, just as she had. The humans weren't just telling stories about their battles. They were sharing their history, and their history was full of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when their values were threatened. Zara kept the pin on her desk as a reminder. Every time she read reports about impossible military achievements by unknown species, she remembered what she had learned about humans. Sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the most true. The galaxy was a more dangerous place with humans in it, but it was also a safer place for anyone who stood beside them. Zara had learned that the hard way, and she would never forget it. In her private notes, she wrote one final observation. The most frightening thing about human warriors is not their skill in battle. It's their ability to turn anyone who fights beside them into a warrior too. They don't just win their own battles. They teach others how to win battles. That, she realized, was the real secret of human military success. They didn't just fight. They inspired others to fight. And that made them more than just dangerous enemies. It made them the most valuable allies in the galaxy.